My husband and his new wife called me a parasite because I called him out for missing half of his child visitation. Now I am going full custody. So, to start with, my ex Harry and I have been divorced for 6 years. We dated a bit in high school when I visited a relative in his hometown for the summers, but I would break up with him when I went back to my city for school, which is about 2.5 hours away. We kept in touch on Facebook then, but he transferred to my school in my sophomore year of college. We got back together and married right after I graduated and moved to my hometown. Our kids, Matt, 11, and Elise, 8, came pretty quickly, and we had a few good years before I felt as if I was already a single mom of 3 kids and was sick of working, doing all the childcare, and all of the cleaning/cooking/planning. We tried therapy but ultimately decided that it wasn't going to work. For 3+ years, it was fantastic. We had a wonderful 50-50 co-parenting relationship. He was such a better father when he had them all to himself, and I had the breaks I had been begging for. We agreed never to badmouth the other in front of the kids or make them responsible for our feelings. We didn't have to spend a fortune on a divorce because we could amicably work everything out, which only benefited our kiddos. In later 2022, he let me know he had gotten back together with Amy. He said her name a bunch like I should know who she was, and I finally asked, and apparently, she was the girl he had dated when I was not in town, before we reconnected. I was honestly happy for him. I'm not interested in dating, to be honest. My kids are too young, and I work a lot and have many friends and family. Amy lived in his hometown, and I know he visited her a lot when he didn't have kids, but he was always there for his parenting time. The kids met Amy and said they liked her, so I was happy. My parents were also divorced but found other people while still being amazing parents, so I was hopeful. But in 2023, he told me he had proposed and would be moving back to his hometown to be with Amy. I was stunned because he was such a dedicated and present father, and asked how he expected that to work. He insisted he wanted to keep 50-50 custody but admitted he could only do parenting time every other weekend. Before he moved, we had no alimony or child support since we were 50-50 and split big expenses evenly. He said he would keep splitting big expenses evenly and offered me child support since my expenses for the kids would increase, having them so much more. Again, we wanted to work this out ourselves, so why spend money on lawyers when we have 2 kids who could use it? I make a bit more than him, not that that matters, but the first amount she offered, $400 for 2 kids a month, was laughable. I didn't laugh at him but told him that would not be acceptable. He said he was willing to continue paying half of the big expenses, plus he'd be driving a 5-hour round trip since he was the one moving every other weekend. I thought about it a lot and figured that I am fine financially and didn't want to bankrupt him for child support. The most important thing to me was that he continued to be a present and amazing father and said I would be okay with $600 a month plus the shared big expenses. I thought he would be happy with this, but he kept grumbling that he thought $400 was more than fair. Ultimately, he agreed to $600. Again, I wanted to make this work for my kids, so please don't tell me I was an idiot for some of these things. I went out of my way to be helpful. I am single and have many family and friends, so I had more free time. If they had things going on, I never minded keeping the kids for their weekend, always encouraged the kids to be excited to go there, bought gifts from them for things like Father/Stepmother's Day, Christmas, birthdays, and even worked it out for my relative in their city to pick our kids up from their wedding ceremony since they had an adults-only reception. These kind gestures were never reciprocated. I tried to brush it off and thought maybe I was just doing too much and tried to take a step back when the kids told me that some of the weekends they stayed with me, Harry and Amy had gone on vacations to places like Europe and Disney. I don't follow them on social media, so I had no idea. I go on vacations, too, but going on such an expensive vacation and not taking my kids sounds nuts. They're great travelers. We went to Japan last summer and had a blast. Maybe I'm an annoying parent, but I couldn't believe he'd leave the country or go to freaking Disney and not only not take the kids but not even let me know. I wanted to remain amicable, but after I found that out, the favor stopped, and for the past few months, anytime he asked me to keep them for a weekend because they had plans, I'd say oh sorry, some good luck. Yes, even if it was far in advance. I wasn't trying to be petty, but it wasn't as if they were ever asking to switch weekends. It was always just skipping them. I know his family is useless, but I have no idea about hers. He should be able to make time for his children 4 days a month. Then, a few months ago, I found out he'd been asking my relatives in his city for help. I didn't want to keep bothering them, so I said yes to keeping the kids more. However, I kept track of them whenever he asked me to keep them. Over a 5-month period, it was 5 times. Around that time, Matt had told me some pretty upsetting things and confided that he was okay with staying here more. I was clear that he could tell me anything and that nothing was his fault at all. But he told me when he was at his dad's, both he and his sister needed to be in their rooms at 8 p.m. They were not in bed, but they weren't allowed to be in the living room or anything or have friends over. I asked if his dad and Amy were home during these times, and he said yeah, but Amy's dog is aggressive, and they keep it in their room during the day, so when he and Elise go to their rooms, they let the dog out so he's not cooped up all day. Elise had bad flu a few visits ago, and apparently, she had asked Harry to sleep with her in her room, but he refused and said he needed to sleep with Amy. Our kids do not co-sleep, but we always let them sleep with us if they are sick and asked. I don't expect Harry and Amy to let her sleep with them or anything, but why couldn't he have stayed with her, even if it was just until she fell asleep? I did not say this to them, but told Matt and Elise that their dad had just gotten over the flu and probably just didn't want to get her sick again, which makes no sense. I know I shouldn't have lied, but they were upset. The worst, in my opinion, is that when Matt randomly told his dad he wanted to see him more, He yelled at him and told him that he was seeing him a lot already and he should want his dad to be happy and not miserable and alone like his mom. So, between all this and the missed visits, I decided I needed to stand up for myself and my kids more. If Harry could go on European vacations, he could afford more child support, and I was done keeping up the appearance of 50-50 custody when he only had the kids for about 45 nights in 2024. So I told Harry I was going to file for updated child support and primary custody and get everything in writing and signed off by a judge. He said he was okay raising child support, that he had gotten a few raises since we settled it, and that he would be fine with upping it to $750. First, you got all these raises and didn't even think of raising it yourself despite skipping almost half your agreed visitation. And that low amount, I told him it was insulting and we could just let the court figure it out. He reminded me that I made much more than he did, and I was like, yeah, that's why I'm able to take them on vacations when you couldn't scourge up enough money to take your children to Disney World. I know that was immature, but I was pissed. He tried fighting more, but I told him I didn't intend to fight with him outside of court, so I filed. Because in writing this, the judge agreed to almost all of my requests. Child support was increased, I have primary custody and decision-making, and it can be adjusted more if he continues skipping weekends. To be honest, this has helped me tremendously with the kids and their increasing expenses and needs. We only communicate via text or email, and it's only about the kids. But our mutual friend told me that at a wedding recently, Amy and Harry spent much time complaining about me, calling me high conflict and a parasite, and much worse things happened when they drank more, but I won't repeat them. I got upset. My only goal is for my kids to have a great childhood and a present dad, and I feel like I fucked that up. My friends told me that Harry's the one who fucked it up, but I'm doubting myself. Update, quick edit. Sorry if I can't reply to everyone, and sorry for the dumb formatting. I initially wrote this in the Notes app because writing it in the Reddit app is annoying. Also, I'm pretty emotional now, but I think you've already changed my mind about offering to drop child support. I will be going for full 100% custody, though. Unfortunately, things have degenerated since my last post. To get this out of the way, I am in therapy, and so are my kids. I know Harry was seeing someone when he lived here, but I have no idea if he still does. He was supposed to have the kids next weekend as scheduled. Wouldn't you believe it? The other day, he called, and they got last-minute tickets to a concert out of town and asked if the kids could stay here. I told him I had plans the entire weekend that had been set months ago, so he asked if I could bring them or stay with one of my family members in my city. I normally would have pulled out my calendar and marked this off as another missed visitation, but I was just sick of it. I told him he needed to figure it out and not call my relatives in his city. They were not his personal, free babysitters, and he was their father, so he needed to start acting like it. He got upset and said he was drowning. I almost laughed but didn't, asking him what he meant. He said he was struggling financially due to the child support and felt like I was trying to punish him for moving. He said I was allowed to be upset we weren't together anymore, but needed to put the kids first and work with him. I couldn't believe he was saying those things. He knows why our marriage ended, and he knows that I have moved mountains to make our co-parenting relationship work. I hung up. I was at work and did not have the emotional bandwidth to be lied to about this. He tried calling me back a few times, but I had meetings, and I realized I shouldn't have spoken in anger, so I wanted to calm down. He even had his wife call me a few times, but I let it go to voicemail. She left a few cruel ones, nothing shocking, just saying I'm bitter and jealous that Harry moved on and wanted to punish them. It's like these two live in some kind of delusion where I not only want my ex back, but I have never helped them once. When I got home, I pulled the calendar for the past 2 years, which had every missed visitation, including last-minute requests, color-coded accordingly. I emailed this to both of them and said that Harry was responsible for coming up with appropriate childcare during his visitation and that if he found it challenging, we could look into changing the visitation schedule to something more accommodating to their busy lifestyles. Then, I left to take my kids to their sports practices. I did not hear from him. Normally, Harry calls our kids every school night evening around 8 p.m., but he didn't that night. I felt guilty. As I've said, the only goal here is for my kids to grow up with a present father. It might have been dumb, but I did call him that evening so he could say goodnight to them, but he sent me to voicemail. I told the kids he had gotten caught up at work. At about 3 a.m., he sent me maybe the longest text in recorded history. I have my phone on sleep mode but keep his and my parents' numbers able to alert me for obvious reasons. I'm a light sleeper, so I did wake up, but I was half asleep, saw how long the text was, and decided it was a problem for the morning. I wish I had gotten up because he sent a few more. The texts proved that they do not occupy the same reality as mine, that they were all self-centered and deranged, and even when he brought up the kids, it was all about him, his wife, and their lives and feelings, saying, "It is my job as a mother to facilitate the kids' relationship with him because he could have easily forced me to move to the city he's in but chose not to so I could stay here with my support system. I don't thank Amy enough for opening her life to the kids by keeping her dog in their room when the kids are here and giving them their bedrooms even though they're empty much of the time. He and Amy are young newlyweds and deserve to have that honeymoon period with trips and opportunities without me making roadblocks." A lot of it was that insane belief that I am somehow jealous and have always been jealous of Amy and needed to get over that for the kids. My cruelty knows no bounds because I have never driven the kids to him in his new city. The court order is for him to do so since he's the one that moved and, no offense, I'm already furious that my kids have to spend so much time in the car every few weeks. I'm not putting miles on my car so he doesn't have to drive more. At one point, because I know the kids hate the long drives, I offered to split the cost for flights between our cities, and he refused, saying the airport in this city was annoying to get to. They might just get full custody and make me the one to jump through hoops to see my children so that I can know how they feel. Accused me of financial abuse for upping child support when I wasn't destitute. Unless I'm living under the poverty line, my kids don't deserve financial help from their father. I have PTO to burn and decided to take one today because I'm overwhelmed and upset about all this. Yes, I took a screenshot of all of these for my lawyer. I don't want to be the cause of my kids' father abandoning them, but I have been at and beyond my limit for so long I don't know what to do. They both treat me so horribly and make these assumptions that are just simply not true. I want my kids to have their dad in their lives. I've run myself ragged making it work, taking up the slack when they dropped weekends, doing all of the mental heavy lifting for looking ahead, and switching weekends if, for instance, Father's Day falls on mine or her birthday falls on their weekend and planning ahead of time / contacting them. I'm so done. I want to offer this. Fine, you win. No more child support. Keep all your money. You can see the kids the weekends after Christmas, Thanksgiving, and Father's Day. Otherwise, they're with me. You two can live your child-free life and I will be just fine without you. I can't keep putting up with this abuse. I'm at my breaking point.